welcome, Chris. So let's start with something super simple here. What got you into account-based marketing? Really, how's it changed since you started?
I've been pretty deep in the ABM space for the last couple of years now. So I'd say 2021, 2022 is the origin story start. Previous to that, I have been a marketing agency owner for almost 20 years. And for a good chunk of that time, I would say I was anti-outbound. So, and I felt that emailing, when you weren't typing an email and sending it to a person, anything beyond that was spam. I was very anti the tool. As new tools started to hit the market, Zoom Info, 6 Sense, our customers had questions. They wanted to know why these tools existed. I didn't have a good answer for them. Started doing some digging. Did go to a couple of conferences, including Inbound, where at that point I had still pretty much like a B- understanding of the outbound tools, but it was very intriguing for obvious reasons. It got to the point where we needed to see the data, talk to lawyers, and then the product team at Apollo and HubSpot. So that way I can have like a deep understanding of the software infrastructure and the legalities around it. And then finally in 2022, growth produced ABM as a service. And since then, constantly finding new and improved ways to do outbound that has an impact.
It's awesome. Now, you said you made a comment there for obvious reasons. Like, what were those obvious reasons to you?
Well, I think the most obvious reason in hindsight is, as a marketer, and this is a conversation I just had with a marketing agency owner yesterday who was trying to get their head wrapped around ABM. And it's the inverse of all the marketing that we've been doing for ages, where you go to Google or you go to LinkedIn or you go to a magazine or a billboard and you're stuck with that audience blanket and you can cut it down. Now you can pick companies and people at those companies, and you can email, you can call, you can LinkedIn, you can deploy ads, you can send them coffee. Whatever you want to do, you can now say hello to whoever you want, wherever you want. That's unbelievable.
That must give like unparalleled access that people really haven't had before. Would you say that's true? Or
ABM's not brand new. It's been around. If I'm remembering correctly, the idea of identifying key accounts with large software companies is where this all went. And they do some data digging. They build out some spreadsheets. But the fact that it's available is still hard to, when we're in the sales process, it's really hard to explain the simplicity because it's also paired with a lot of complexity, being in the messaging and the outreach process. But the easy part is pick a company, pick a job at that company. We can put your message in front of that person. That's wild.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned a few key account tools, Apollo, 6 Sense, etc. Like, for the uninitiated, how do these tools actually work? Can you break down the process a bit?
I can. So I would say you come into these tools you would assume that there's some homework being done. And so, I do want to asterisk my ABM is for a certain type of company. It's B2B. It's, 10 million and up, very specific buyers, and they have been in business for a while. One of the perks of dealing with companies that have been in business for a while is we can see all of your sales data, and there's likely some commonality around your favorite customers, and they can be your favorite because they're writing you the biggest checks. They're the least, the less amount of headaches, and maybe a combination of several things. So you come in knowing what makes a good customer for you, and then you can go to these tools like Apollo and use those triggers, revenue, size, location, industry, maybe even some keywords, to then see what companies match those exact combination of attributes, and there goes your new target account list.
So if B2B company was just getting started in this, wanted to dip their toe in the water, where should they start? Should they go look at Apollo? Should they go look at these tools?
Or should they call me? They should start with they should understand they should watch my 20-minute webinar on what is ABM. You need a couple of things. You need to have a sales and marketing alignment meeting, right? You're going to need some tools and resources. You're going to need a CRM. You're going to need a sales enablement tool that allows you to send one-on-one emails. Both of those are available in HubSpot. You're also going to need some sort of tool to aggregate the data to create list of companies and contacts. That's your starting place. The information you're going to need to bring into those is around the sales and marketing alignment meeting. And it's kind of just like a in-depth conversation that gets you to this commonality in the kind of targets that you want to reach out to. Have I lost you yet? Are we still in it?
We're still in it. We're still in it. Where I'm at is like, okay, obviously if you've been in business a while, you should know who your ideal customer is, right? Easy number one. I've seen companies that have been around for a while struggle with that a little bit. What's some advice that you can give to them for that? Because that's how they're going to set up all these targeting pieces.
I can empathize with the stress around creating a target account list because it feels so finite, like as if you can't still do your normal things. This is just its own thing on its own. So go approach this with a growth mindset, but you got to start at some time with someone. So if you are feeling like the idea of creating a specific target list is difficult, you might just need a little bit more time and a third party in the room to help delineate some of this information. There has to be some commonality. Are all of your clients in the United States? Start there. Are they certain revenue sizes? Are you dealing with the Fortune 100s? Are you dealing with small businesses? There are some common factors, and start there. This is a difficult thing. So also find somebody that can curate this sales and marketing alignment meeting for you. If there's just like no confidence in communication and I don't know, creativity at your company, which sounds awful.
ABM's probably not for everybody. There are businesses that it's going to work really well for. There's businesses that it's not going to work well for. And my mind is going, hey, the tech startup that just got founded 3 months ago is looking to really push some efforts here. Is ABM a good strategy for them?
No, I think they're just looking at mass outreach at scale. And so not quite the same thing. Also is not my universe. So I am very excited for SaaS startup founders to make their mark, but please do not call me to be participating.
Let's talk about growth. And thinking back to the early days before you started looking at ABM, was there ever a point for growth or even a client where you saw, their team was just trying to juggle too many accounts?
I think that's a really common mistake, right? It's the fear of not having somebody included in this target account list. Does that mean that this company that I just found on the internet can't be just add it then? But yet I feel like I got a little sidetracked there. What was the question? What the hell's happening today?
So let's talk about, let's use growth as an example. Was there ever a point for growth when you were trying to juggle too many accounts?
Keep calling us, man. No, I think we grow in a pretty healthy way. So we want to make sure that there's a lot of really great talent out there. So thankfully we haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah. So I guess from an impact point of view, that's been good for you. Could you see it as a potential where they're trying to juggle too many accounts, trying to target too many, let's say, different niches, and it might have led to, do you think it could lead to losses or missed opportunities because they're trying to just get their hands in every pot?
Easily. Part of the ABM mantra is discipline. So in order for ABM to be effective, great, you found these companies, but you also need to be aware of the humans and the companies that you're reaching out to. And you do this by prepping with industry and persona-based content and landing pages that support the outreach. The outreach is the mechanism. But if you throw a fishing line in a toxic pool, you're not going to catch anything. All the factors of where you throw the fishing line matter: the lure, the water, the time of day. All of those factors make up whether you're going to be catching a fish or not just the fact that you threw a string into what looks like liquid.
Earlier, you made a mention about, picking the right accounts, like focusing on the high value accounts. So, where was the turning point for you, or even when working with a client, to say, hey, we need to change this strategy up. We need to focus differently on the big fish.
I guess I would worry about the label being big fish. I think it's just right fish. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like these account whales. And in most businesses, the whales don't show up until after you service them in a smaller way first. Again, unless you're like in the elite 1,000 companies in the world. I think that's something to consider. So who are the right accounts, and why are they the right accounts?
Yeah, like I see some value in that. Like I remember you and I having a conversation about, what makes a value account. It's not always revenue. Can you dig into that a bit? Because I think that's a good piece for people to look at. Is not everything is about the revenue that a client can bring.
Yeah, well, revenue is obviously one of the things, but like in our situation where we work with customers, their attitude matters, their timeliness and showing up and responding. Now we deal with a lot of professional services companies, and if you sell time for a business, those factors matter. Your CFO is watching that line. For different companies like manufacturing companies, good clients might be consistent clients. Maybe you have a distribution partner that has been a little bit quiet, but with ABM, you're able to re-engage with them. And so they're consistent clients. So they're ordering, maybe not volume day one, but every quarter you're like, oh my God, these guys' invoices just keep growing. Those are great. And should be part of the consideration when you're making your first list of companies you're going after.
Did you ever? I mean, it's a little different for you because you're the top dog at growth, so it's not like you're going to get a lot of pushback from the team in that sense. But
I want pushback, but I am always right. It's really hard to deal with. But
so how do you? Let's maybe look at this from a client perspective. Have you had skeptical clients about putting an ABM process and ABM tools into their flow, into their infrastructure? Have you had the skeptics before?
Absolutely. I mean, we deal with traditional verticals: manufacturing, accounting, recruitment. These industries have been around for a long time, and thankfully they have kept some people in the driver's seat for a very long time. And so there's a specific quote, we'll call it a paraphrase, from a director of sales at Chicago Protective Apparel. Her name's Mary. And again, paraphrasing, she was very anti this program, by the way, a year and a half ago. I thought it was spam, but it was magic. And she said that after the first 6 weeks of the campaign, we got her a meeting with a bucket list client. She literally gave us what she thought was an impossible task. Like, what a healthy way to have a relationship. Gave us an impossible task. We had no idea. We said yes. And in 6 weeks, she flew to Atlanta to meet with that client because they had that was like a real meeting. Another fun kind of fact from that, it ended up, it's turning into an entirely new product because when they had the meeting, there was no one that serviced this need that this plant had. It's like, I mean, that was, a wonder story. But yes, it's very frequent that the idea of outbound is considered spam. But it legally is not. We've done the work.
That's a great segue. Because a lot of people, they get an email. What the hell is this crap? Who's this person contacting me? How do you shift the mindset on that? Because I know myself too. I was the same way. I hate getting cold email and things like that. How do you shift the mindset for these business owners in those conversations?
People can't buy from you if they don't know you exist. So this is just another method of letting people know that you exist. There's a lot of bad examples of outbound, right? We've all get the LinkedIn messages and we get the emails. And it's unfortunate because someone's probably on the other side of that, sending those in what's probably not a really engaging work atmosphere with great leadership and reasonable expectations. So I used to get annoyed too, and now I actually feel bad every time I see it. Just because there's a few people doing it very poorly does not take away for the times where it's happening to you and you don't realize it and it's working. So you don't have the label on it because you didn't even realize that's how it went down when that you received an email from somebody that went to a trade show you attended, and then they ended up buying your product and vice versa. There's a lot of good examples. You just don't realize it when it's done well.
Yeah, I think it's all about the experience, right? Because like I even think like back to the early days of inbound marketing, somebody read a blog post, grabbed the lead magnet that's attached to that blog post, and then all of a sudden they're getting emails from that business. And it's just if it's done well enough, it creates an experience for the person on the other end. And that's what makes it special, because when you can do it without them realizing it, it's very powerful. I think I just said what you said, but in a different way. But that's my take on it.
I think it's a good take.
Give me an example of how data from tools like Apollo and the others that you mentioned help influence difficult decisions by the businesses that you've.
Well, I think it's a really, it's kind of like, what's that? It's the orange book that like a lot of business owners love that talk about.
The orange book.
Okay. Yeah, it's called Traction, right? So why did I bring up Traction? Because Traction, you can read the book and you can be like, okay, I can implement this. But there's a lot of people that are very good at implementing operational processes that can be more valuable than trying to do it internally. Same framework when it comes to choosing your target account list. I think one of the really interesting things that data enrichment tools like Apollo and like ClearBit offer is this ability to, in your sales and marketing alignment meeting, to talk about the idea of a target account list and then make it happen in front of you. So like as you're saying that these are the features, plug them into the software, you can see exactly how many companies match that combination of factors. So if there's 3, okay, guys, we need to go to the drawing board. If there's 3 million, also we need to go back to the drawing board. You really want to find subsections, we'll call them like, these bookmarks, if you will, of these common trades to be a volume that you should be able to get all of the market reached out to within a certain period of time. Your capacity is going to be based on how many users are participating in ABM, which is another offshoot conversation.
So let's say you're sitting there in that marketing and sales alignment meeting, and the director of sales says, guys, we're wasting a lot of time on really low potential accounts. They're not converting. I want to focus on accounts that are actually going to convert. Now, part of me says, okay, we got to dial in that ICP and really figure out what that is. And then we go over to Apollo, let's say, and now we're going to start putting in obviously the demographic information of those clients. How can we take that a step up? Like I'm thinking, what can we use, like maybe intent data to help spruce that up and build that list?
Sure. So the thing about using intent data to build that list gets convoluted because intent happens naturally. So if I would say intent is it's a pod of ABM. In fact, it's the pod that I think always makes ABM a winning opportunity because intent data works every single time. And asterisk there, you got to have some things. But intent data is nutso.
Do you have any success stories about building that out and bringing intent data in?
I do. That's why I can call it nutso. And I think it's for ABM is very hard to stick the landing, right? Because you've got to have leadership buy-in. you've got to have some tools, you've got to have some human resources, and you need to have marketing and sales knowledge and reporting. And so it's very laborious and very time consuming. And I hate to say it, it's expensive. I am not like your cheap do it free guru. This is going to cost money to hang out with me type of person. With intent data, when you have all these tools and best practices, so you're doing inbound so people that are searching for you can find you. You're doing outbound so the people that you know commonly need what you do, you're telling about yourselves. With intent data, powered by Bombora, this is this company that's created this internet web of analytical information. You can really look, every company is different, but there's a really interesting way you can go about it. And my working genius works well for this. So the idealistic problem solver or something like that. With intent data, depending on how you're getting it, you can typically be looking for your own type of search terms. If you have a very specific product and a product category, like I'm talking to manufacturers here, this is a no-brainer. If you sell pool pumps wholesale, you want to know when someone's looking for that obscure combination, right? If you sell a special type of, I love that this mechanics for a client, I talk about them all the time because they're such a hoot, but they've got this for molten paper. There's a whole suit, whatever the heck this thing's called. They're the only company that makes it. So yes, people can Google it, but inventory is weird. So if you put that in the intent data, then you can ping these companies that are looking for this weird super suit. It looks like a 1960s comic villain. It's awesome. Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah. It's kind of creepy on the other hand. I think I'm just out there Googling something and then I get this random email. I mean, it's awesome, but it's creepy, but it's awesome.
It 100%, but that's the cost of Googling and for using the internet. You have to pay for the access, but these companies aren't just giving you Google didn't make Google to not get money at some point. You know what I mean? So just have to be. That's just kind of like buyer beware stuff. But yes, but if you're looking for the suit, because people are getting splashed with molten stuff, and then someone says, "Hey, I think you're looking for the suit that I sell." We're like, "Yeah, we are. How'd you know? Who cares?" But the next person's not going to get hit with magma. So let's handle this business real quick.
Yeah, that's awesome. What result did that give mechanics?
In our first campaign, which ran for 9 months, we generated over $2.5 million in pipeline.
Ooh.
Real pipeline. So those are like closed open deals. They restarted their campaign in 2024. It started March 12th, under two months, and I think they're at the 1.5 to 2 million mark for pipeline for 2024. Wow. Yeah, they 3x their program with us, and that's a healthy way to do it.
Yeah. Now, disclaimer: those kind of results aren't always going to happen. But what set them up for that kind of success? What was their tech stack? I mean, obviously, the team is you and growth, but the tech stack.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the lead strategist on that account. Like, not only is so talented, but he is so handsome. I just can't talk enough about Christopher at all. He's great. I mean, what a superpower they must have had. No, so why did mechanics work? One, I think it's important to understand that your brand presence online will impact these results. So if you have a cheap website and you're a startup or all the elements, this is not going to work for you. Mechanics is a very well-known brand all around the world. So they have that going for them. I mean, honestly, I think that's one of the factors. Another one is they know their industries well. So when we're targeting aerospace, they have gloves for that industry. They have allows us to make landing pages with the right verbiage, with the right images. And we've done that for 17 different industries so far in 2024. Wow. That level of personalization really matters. And in their, in their original campaign, we didn't go that route. But we've seen that the more time you take on the front end to consider who you're reaching, the better the results.
Love that. Now let's get to the actual question. The tech stack.
Oops.
What was in that?
Okay. I think the growth ABM tech stack is CRM, HubSpot, sales engagement, HubSpot, data enrichment, Apollo, and ClearBit. Shameless plug. Salesforce, you can totally have for your ad deployment. We haven't talked much about ads, but Rollworks is the industry leader, and there is an up and coming David and Goliath story in a company called Brand Gen, which is moving quickly to being a really good alternative to Rollworks.
Let's talk shop about this tech for a second. What features in these tools do you find absolutely essential?
Great question. Okay, for HubSpot, overall reporting. Dial it down to industry, know exactly how many people are contacted, how many times, just make it super transparent. Shout out to Jason Glass from Growth, HubSpot certified trainer. He has made some insane reporting tools, which is really great for large companies like mechanics to show to their board. It makes life easy. Also, even though we are not the salespeople, we want tabs on them to make sure that they're fulfilling. So the procurement tab is real. Did I say procurement?
You did.
The procurement tab. What the? Oh my God. I don't even know the word for this tab now. I'm completely blank. What's the tab where it shows you prospecting tab?
There
Rookie
you go.
Boo.
They both started with
God. Friday. It's Friday. Get it right. Get it through. Okay. So the prospecting tab, though, like jokes aside, is really great because it just keeps all of the leads that you've generated in one place. You can see what actions. You can use the target account list inside of HubSpot. Other tools, Apollo, data enrichment, best bang for your buck by a lot. I've tried a bunch of them. So data enrichment. Honestly, that's kind of really what Apollo is to me. No offense, Apollo, if you're listening. But I think you guys are really good in data enrichment tool. But I like to do my sequencing inside HubSpot. And I don't need all the AI stuff. But that's not for me. They also do have access in your subscription plan to Bombora intent data, which again, super valuable. They format Bombora's data into categories, which I do not love. So you have to choose from one of their prefix categories. Cost of doing business with Apollo. If you're looking for more data enrichment for intent, go straight to Bombora, but it's pricey. Rollworks. When we talk about the sales marketing alignment meeting, we talk about target accounts, and we go into creating contact list of the people at that companies. We can import those lists into Rollworks so we can run ads directly to those people's IP. And the IP is usually pulled from Apollo, and or as you get some engagement through your emails. But I think that contact level ad placement is just nuts. It's crazy because companies now can literally put their exact messages and information via email, via LinkedIn, via phone call, and ad placement on their computer screen. And then you can go from 0 to everywhere in a week. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Any other tools? Or that's the top?
I think I had to pull my cameras like, what's going on here? I think those are the tools. I think that's that's it. Maybe ChatGPT to help write copy.
There you go. At least not final version. I need to put that in there. It's got to be a draft.
It's an iterative tool. You use it to come up with ideas.
Are there any features within those tools that you wish they had that could really take this all to the next level?
Love if HubSpot would just absorb all of these into their stack, honestly. Slowly but surely happening. See, I don't know. I don't think that way. I guess that's a hard question for me to answer.
Yeah. I'm the tech tool nerd, so I think that way.
I love it. What do you think they should add, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early to tell. I mean, I do like the fact that they are integrating AI, but who isn't integrating AI into their tools right now? I wish that with the integration of AI, it would take some more context from the author to establish brand voice and build authority in the messaging pieces that it generates. Those are just areas that I see. I have to get into the tools more and play with them. The HubSpot's doing a great job with the Content Hub. I have no qualms there. I wish
I completely
we could use
missed
it to
out.
really...
That shameless plug too, man. Like if you're doing a sizable ABM campaign and you're going after these like little micro groups, let's say 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 industries, Content Hub being able to come up with like one engaging landing page template and then cloning it 14 times, adding different background images, changing the promotion so it's industry specific. It does take a couple hours, but it used to take a month.
Yeah, and we've got smart content in HubSpot, so why not let that be partially AI driven too, based on whatever parameters? Like the nerd.
I don't even know what that is.
Putting a wish list together here. And I think one tool that we didn't mention, which is something we're looking at right now, is air traffic control and being able to serve up content that actually people are actually interested in, that you've already created. I think that
what an
really
interesting strategy. That was a fun exercise, and like definitely shout out to air traffic control. It's fun being able to collaborate with you specifically, because you and I obviously problem solve differently. And so when I first came across it, I was like, what a cool tool. I kind of get it. And then seeing you actually make something out of it and start to build these pages, I was like, oh yeah, this is rad. So yeah, air traffic controls, they're heating up.
Yeah, we can sit here and talk about the wish list for forever. So let's jump forward.
Well, I am on the customer advisory board at Apollo, and we are partners with Rollworks. And so if you ever do want me to feed any of that information up, I'll bring it to them.
Yeah, we will be having those conversations. Now, tech is always moving fast, and I know I get into the weeds on the tech. You've pointed that out to me a couple of times now.
Respectfully.
So, aside from giving your team a pat on the back or a slap on the shoulder, how do you keep your strategies and tools sharp and up to date?
So one, it's really smart to invest your time and energy into platforms that aren't like one trick ponies, like pop up and they're just here to make a quick buck and leave. There's a lot of them. There are. I think that was a lesson I accidentally learned by being a HubSpot partner. And when I started to look at Zoom Info versus Apollo, I think that's one of the, I know that's one of the things that stood out is Apollo was still very relatively new. But they were planning for the future. They were investing in community. They were investing in partnerships. And that sort of roadmap let me know that we could then invest in our personnel the same way in using Apollo, the same way that we do with HubSpot. Jesse, Jason, everybody's getting these academy courses. Jesse's dug into their product at the deepest level. And we know that we're going to be using this tool for several years. It's just not going to phase out, which is really important when you're picking your tools, which is why, unlike you, I don't mess with a bunch of different tech tools because I don't think they're going to last. I think one of the tools I use is going to absorb them, but then I'll use it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Apple versus Android, right? Apple or Android will push out a bunch of new features. People will love it. And iPhone users are upset because they don't have the tool. I'm not even going to acknowledge what you just said. They don't have the features, but when they do come out, and it kind of goes back to the conversation earlier about experience. It is such a flawless experience. It just works. It's well implemented. And I think that that's something to say, like even with HubSpot and its acquisitions and it bringing in, when they acquired PySync, and they started bringing that in for the data sync side of things. And now with their ClearBit acquisition, I think you're going to start to see HubSpot really step up their game, which probably also means subscription costs are going to go up, but that's just the cost of doing business.
That's an excellent phrase. I love that one. It is the cost of doing business. And I think HubSpot does have a really good roadmap. My point of view, like with the ClearBit stuff, very cool. not really functional quite yet.
No.
I feel like maybe they maybe rushed into that a little bit. I see some friction. No big deal, not my problem. I'm an Apollo partner. Not a problem. Yeah. I feel like there's a thought there, but it's gone into the mist.
It's gone into the mist. Well, that's perfect segue. So let's start talking about some insights, because you are a guy that has a lot. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten about ABM that you'd like to pass on?
Iterate. Just these things aren't final. Your list can change. Your offer can change. Excuse me. Every single variable needs to be looked at and changed. So get over yourself. Doesn't need to be perfect.
Done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Progress over perfection.
There you go. And how has that advice shaped your approach?
Well, in life, I try to practice what I preach all the time.
That's
which
awesome.
is fun. But it does help me in situations where we're talking to tenured traditional companies that don't do things differently very often. Just cut to the chase and say, like, hey, you're right and you're right. Let's just do them both. Hey, we can pick micro subsections. So I don't even know if that's the answer to the question. It just helps me kick down some friction. Just let's just let it roll. Who cares?
Well, I'll sum it up to practice what you preach.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. And I'm just going to do this. Take a breath, have some water. You're starting to cough.
Thank you. Right hole that time. Perfect. Yeah, edit that one out.
Okay. So, Chris, if you could have a chat with your younger self, the one that thought ABM was outbound spam, what would you tell him?
I would say for me, the hang up was the spam factor, and still surprised how little people talk about it, but it's not spam. If I would have known that earlier and known the rules, I could have gotten my head into the game sooner. There's a really helpful compliance guide that the Federal Trade Commission came out with that list the 7 spam factors and very easy to use and understand. I'm completely blown away with examples and everything. I couldn't believe it. The government did such a great job defining this, and I don't have any other examples. For once, that's what I'm saying. It's really great.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So outbound is not spam, asterisk, as long as you follow the rules.
As long as you follow the rules. Don't be a douche. Rule number 1.
Practice what's preach.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up with one last question. Where do you think ABM is headed in the next, 5 years?
I think a lot of people are going to try to pull it into a fully automated system and fail miserably. Because the human points, just like implementing software, typically are the most impact moments. So I think the industry is going to pull more towards flashy, oh my God, look how much you can do without people. But really, I think the more companies are definitely turning to outbound programs. So I think there'll be continue to be a big increase of companies looking to use these tools. I think there'll continue to be an exponential amount of noise that they're going to have to wade through to make their decision on who to hire or what to do. And so it's our job to stand out in front of the BS and help them make a good decision, because there's a lot of, like I said, noise out there. It's only going to get noisier.
What do you think the impact of things like third-party cookies and is going to have on these data sets that these companies have acquired?
You know what's interesting is the whole Bombora thing started out of the cookiepocalypse movement. So their data web is basically a network of first-party data sites, non-cookies, that they use to get that information. So I think in a cookieless environment, the tools like brand gen, which was again also born directly out of the cookie apocalypse vision of the future, like days of future past, you just have to work around it. And when you get someone to your website, that becomes your first party data now. Realize that everybody is a gold coin and keep them safe and treat them nicely.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for all of this enlightful information. I learned a lot today. I hope whoever is listening to this or the clips or whatever learns from it as well.